What's up? Hello. Today we have a new adventure. Watching Tiffany work out.
No. Hey, you started that podcast like how you always tell me it's silly.
Hey, what's up, guys?
Yeah, exactly. What's up, guys?
Hey, what's up, guys? Look at this disaster. Dude, you have grass all over you. Stop. Anyways, we have a little project today, as you can see here. Today's project is taking this 5 foot, 2.5 inch thick, hard maple piece of board and turning it into a closet shelf for a room in which no one stays in. Step one is cutting it to length. This is a $250 board, so keep in mind, I can't cut this wrong. It is a little over 5 feet long, and I needed to cut it to 59 and 3/16 of an inch. So let's see if I can do that successfully. Again, it's 12 inches deep, 2.5 inches thick, and if I mess it up, I'm out $250 that Tiffany didn't pay me for. Let's get after it. And just for context, this is our guest suite in the basement. Is very much under construction. So far we have had these drop-down lights installed, obviously furniture. We did some furniture over here. It's got its own bathroom, nice view. It's in the basement, sort of detached, if you can get a sense, off the patio in the basement. But anyways, the problem with this room is it didn't have its own dedicated closet. It's got the bathroom, no closet. So we decided to extend this wall out because we had quite a bit of good room here and you can actually see the wall extension. So framed it, put up drywall, finished it, painted it. Fortunately, you can still see the line, but we have a plan for that. But behind it, it creates this like nook for a closet. And because the room's already pretty like wide open, we decided to do an open sort of front closet, open head closet or top. And so that 5 foot maple board is gonna go at 7 feet. This wall is 8 feet. We're gonna put it at 7 feet across here. And we want it to kind of look floating, but it doesn't have to be exactly floating. So that's why we gotta cut it down to fit exactly between these two walls. Yeah, so that's it. And then we gotta figure out brackets to hold it up there. I think we're gonna do some additional like sort of side shelves on this side at the bottom, so you can still hang clothes and all that. But I got a dog on a chair that's not supposed to be on it. Off, off. Good girl. So need a saw blade. We'll go find that. Okay, we are about to make the world's most critical cut. I have put painter's tape on the edge so that it doesn't splinter as much. I got a new like $67 Diablo blade, 80-tooth blade. That's a fun expense. And now I just need to center it up, make sure it's square, which it seems to be, and cut through this bad boy. First try, I feel like I lined that up. Crazy. And because this board is so thick, I do want to make sure it's as level as possible. You know, does that make sense? Because I don't want a bevel on that edge. In reality, I don't know what I'm doing. Assume you all recognize that. I think we're ready to cut. Any last objections? Pretty smooth cut. No cracking in the wood, which is good. The only question is, does it fit in the closet? Let's go check. What are the odds I scratch the wall here? Okay, I think I can get in there. But I'm gonna definitely scratch the wall and we're gonna sand the ends of this tossed down a little bit. So still got to do that. Let's do that now. Last critical step here is to sand it down, sand the sides with a little heavier grit. And then I don't know, I have like 5 different levels of grit on this toothpaste. That's what I think of when I think of grit. On this sandpaper, so just need to keep working at that and see where we can get to make it nice and smooth, like my personality. Meanwhile, this is always going on somewhere. What are you doing, Doms? Okay, small update. Speaking of small people, I'm basically going through this board and just starting at low grit sandpaper, working my way up to finer grit, like a 220 I think I have over there. What do I have? 220. Yeah, 220. It's pretty smooth even after 180. So making progress. Let me see about my partner here. The problem I just ran into, I was reloading the paper on my little sand thing, and I lost the wing nut on this side. So now we're looking for that. One of us is looking for that. That wing nut clamps down the sandpaper. Does anyone see it? While my partner's working hard over here, just getting dirty, as stole my water bottle. Okay, so the next day I ended up wanting to also put in a lower shelf, so a shelf about seat height. So here I am cutting into a similar size shelf. It's only 1.5 inches thick. But yeah, I needed to prep this board as well. This project, by the way, took basically a month from buying this hardwood boards in the size we could find. We had to go to a specialty lumber store. It's actually pretty hard to find 12-inch deep and thicker lumber. I don't know if I'm just looking at the wrong places. Comment below if you know where to get this kind of stuff easily. Bigger, larger wood pieces, hardwood pieces. Just double checking my measurements again. In fact, on this particular piece, I started a little bit too conservatively and decided to cut it down a little bit more. Even the one on top where I showed I cut it essentially perfect. Measuring wall to wall, you actually have to account, you need a little space and that the walls aren't perfectly square, especially since we added an extension to that wall later on. Finally got it where I needed it, and I have a little left over. You'll notice here, so on the larger top shelf, I hand sanded that thing, and I hand sanded that thing a lot. I was just, sweating up a storm. It was a good exercise, but Harbor Freight had a deal. I think this sander was like $30 or 30% off, so it made it $30. Went out and got this, and honestly, it helps a ton. Made this job much easier. So here I am just sanding it down, prepping it for the next step. I don't love woodworking. It's a ton of just like preparation, cutting and whatnot. I don't know, for whatever reason, steel feels more intuitive to me. And wood also is just always not square, plumb, whatever you want to call it. It always has like natural deviations, which I think that triggers my perfectionism a little bit. Not that steel doesn't, but wood just, it has more of it. So here I am doing a fit check and my camera focus goes crazy, but still a little too tight. So more sanding just to try to get a hair more room to fit it in there. And this is just that step. I mentioned earlier, where I'm putting on this water-based lacquer cover or protectant on both the top shelf and the bottom shelf. Okay, so this step is where things get spicy. And by spicy, I mean nowhere on the internet could I find that you can create a floating shelf type bracket look with angle iron. And I intended to break the mold of history by using angle iron to hang these shelves. So here I am just measuring out like a 10-foot piece of 2.5-inch wide angle iron and cutting it down to size. And you'll see in a minute here how exactly I create or take angle iron and create a shelf. And I don't think you see this on floating shelves because you need technically 3 walls to achieve this, and most floating shelf brackets are designed to sit against 1 wall. In fact, my wife Tiff, she bought some brackets that cost $180 to hang these shelves, and we didn't even end up using them because what I create here actually looks better. It is arguably more stable in my opinion. So just cutting things to length at the moment, and in a moment here I'll show you exactly how this all comes together. You could do it with I think this was like a $30 piece of angle iron. I still had like 3 or 4 feet left after it was all said and done. This is another magic trick I invented, probably not, but it is where I take painter's tape and I'm basically figuring out exactly where I want to screw the angle iron into the wall, into studs. And so I'm using the tape at the full width, and I'll cut it off here. Then once I have the tape on, I'm using the stud finder just to double check my stud markings to make sure I get those right. And then on the blue tape, I will actually put a little dot to mark where I need my pilot holes within the angle iron in order to screw those pilot holes through, in order to screw a screw through the angle iron into the stud behind the drywall. And if you haven't yet picked up on the magic of that, you'll see it here where I take my pre-cut angle iron, I take the same piece of tape off the wall, and I stretch it across the angle iron exactly where end to end where I need it, and I just tape it to the angle iron, and now I know exactly where to drill the pilot holes. I know I'm a genius. You can comment below and just affirm that for me. Thank you. Speaking of genius, I decided to use these Harbor Freight drill bits to try and drill through angle iron. And you'll see here, I actually snap this drill bit off in half. Boom, snap that drill bit. Those Harbor Freight drill bits are immense trash. Eventually, I go out and buy some Milwaukee Cobalt drill bits that fly through this like a knife through hot butter. But yeah, with that is a super easy way to make sure you're drilling directly where you need to, and eventually you just hit your studs, or if you were off, you're just gonna miss them and have to deal with it anyway. So another step here, just for a little extra nice finish, was to take 60 grit sandpaper and sand down the entire angle iron. It helps get off the WD-40 that you use to drill the pilot holes. It flattens out the pilot holes, just makes it smoother overall. You don't really need sharp edges anywhere, and especially since, as you'll see, this is going to sit against drywall, and you don't want it to crush. A sharp edge will tear the drywall. And finally, to make it all look very nice and match the fixtures in the room, spray painting it a satin black, at least the parts you could see. You really only need to spray paint or shave. I don't know why I was going to say shave. Spray paint the bottom because it's at a 7 feet level so people can see underneath, and sort of the lips that you'll see on the top, bottom edge, whatever you want to call that. Now that was just a back brace that I showed. I also need bracing for each side wall. So here I'm cutting, again, a shorter piece to fit one of the side walls. And these are actually a little more tricky than the back angle iron. The back angle iron just needs the length cut. The side angle iron needs to fit directly into the back angle iron. And you'll see here how this all comes together in a moment. And this is just showing off my not so smooth, perfect cut with a grinder. If you have other tools like an Evolution cutoff saw or a band saw, probably easier to make these cuts. So this is actually where I'm cutting the notch in one of these side pieces. So this notch will help it so it sits directly on top of the back angle iron brace. Before we look at that, my official inspector, wanted to take a look at my work, make sure I met tolerances. She was generally unimpressed. Here's where you can start to see it come together. This side is fully cut. Imagine the wall is the concrete in this image. So I should be able to set it directly on top, and they tie together perfectly with very little or no seam at all between the two. We almost want it to look seamless as it holds the shelf up. Now here's the other side where I realized I actually need to cut out the width on the bottom of each side piece so that it fits on top of the back angle iron. And again, that's kind of hard to make sense of until you see it all come together here shortly. And that's exactly what I'm doing here. I'm cutting through the width in order to let it sit directly on top so that each of the bottom part, the parallel to the floor part of the angle iron, is exactly flush on all two sides and in line and flush with the back side. And then another quick step here is just grinding it down, making all the edges smooth. Again, we don't want it to pierce the drywall if possible. So making all these a little bit smoother and rounding off this corner is important as well. That corner sits inside the back angle iron. An angle iron, if you look on the inside corner, it has a curve to it. It's not perfectly a 90-degree angle. So if you want it to sit flush, you got to round off the corner of the angle iron sitting inside of it. Now, finally, this is what it all looks like, assuming the concrete here is the back of the wall. So these two side pieces should sit on their own directly on top of the back angle iron. Again, my inspector is ensuring that I have everything in order. But you can see here they can stand on their own, sit there on their own. And if I take you in closer here, you'll see that there's basically no gap. There's a little tiny gap in there. That's acceptable. And then you can see how the rounded corner fits into the bottom corner, or the 90 of the angle iron. On this side, it's even better on this other side. So you'll see even less of a gap here. Same thing, the inside, pretty tight. There's a little light coming through there. But overall, a really good fit for a shelf bracket. By this point, my inspector was extremely bored. Now this step maybe isn't necessary, but I recessed every screw hole that was going into a wall, or also had holes going from the bottom of the angle iron into the wood shelf to secure it. You can recess these so that the screw doesn't jut out, and it gives you more of a flush fit with the wood sitting cupped within all the three angle iron sides. So now that the back angle iron is fitted, it basically just needs to go up. You can see using the laser level helps quite a bit just to eyeball it, especially if you only have one set of hands. I'm drilling in the center screw first, which I drilled it tight enough basically that it would stay there on its own. But if I needed to adjust it up or down on the left or right, according to the level, I could do that easily, just sort of spinning it on that center screw. But of course, perfectly nailed it in terms of it being level between the two walls. Now, once the bracket or the back bracket is up, it's all about just getting the side brackets in. And because I made them notch into the back, it's pretty easy just to sit it there, use a small magnetic level, figure out where level is, and drill those suckers in. On this particular side, I actually had blocking in that wall that we built. So it was pretty easy to hit a 2x4. But on this side, it was a little bit different. The forward or the outward most screw hole did not have a 2x4. It's basically a wall with 16-inch studs on center, and the shelf only comes out to 12 inches, so just shy. So I had to use a heavy-duty drywall anchor, but the back one is still secured into a stud. Plus, it all kind of sits onto that back bracket. So overall, if you can hit a stud, hit a stud. If you can't, then there are alternatives. And honestly, I think for the most part, unless someone's trying to hang or sit on these shelves, these angle iron brackets will hold it even with just drywall anchor, with just a drywall anchor securing several spots. You may want to add more spots where you drill into the wall if you cannot find or hit studs. Now, if you go back to the start of the video, I thought I was cool and I knew exactly how wide to cut this larger piece of hard maple. But the reality is I later decided to do this angle iron bracket system. And the angle iron, if I remember right, it's basically like a 1/4 inch thick or not quite a 1/4 inch. So I needed to cut roughly another 1/2 inch off of the board, this $250 board, which made me a little bit nervous. So here I am again, taping it up with painter's tape so it doesn't splinter on the end. And I also had to figure out the wall basically was a shorter length deepest into the wall than it was on the outer side. So in a way I had to make an angle cut, just a slight angle. So it takes me a little while to figure that out, but I eventually figure it out here. Back. Okay, getting near the end here, the last step on this big block of wood, what I'm sanding down is the back bottom corner that fits into the backside angle iron. And again, remember, angle iron isn't a perfect 90-degree angle, so I'm sort of carving a rounded edge so it fits snugly and perfectly into that back angle iron, and it's as flush to the wall as possible. And then, as I am a genius, I did not even film me sliding and putting this into the shelf system. So I don't know how I missed that. I think my camera died or something. Anyways, last step here is to roll around in the grass. We still have to put up the bar to hang clothes on. So I think this is just an aluminum bar from Home Depot. You can buy it black and then you just got to cut it down to size. I do not know why I didn't use an angle grinder to do this cut. I haven't used a hacksaw before, so I was just trying to hacksaw through it thinking I'd get a cleaner cut. I'm not sure I actually got a cleaner cut, but whatever. Either way, I successfully cut the proper length with the hacksaw. So here I'm just making sure I did that correctly in fitting it manually real quick. And of course, breaking out the laser level again. You can see on the left-hand side, I set the little pole holder on the left side, and I'm applying some painter's tape. What you might call, again, a wizard or a magician's magic tool, painter's tape. And I'm creating a piece of tape that goes from the one side of the pole holder to the wall. And now I can take that off and use it on the other side so I know exactly how far to put it. And then the laser level tells me exactly how high to put the other side's bracket. Last step is to drill this bitch in. In a final shining moment is to actually place the, what do you call this? A close rod into its home and tear off the sticker so it looks completely custom built. And then in reality, it's not a closet until someone uses it to store apparel and also try on that same apparel. So a true test of a project's success is its use in the real world. And here you can see me using my coat in Texas and making sure I can still fly away. So if you've made it this far, you definitely deserve some kind of award. I'm gonna go ahead and leave that to YouTube to figure out what they should give you, but there should definitely be a prize to actually watch this entire video. And truthfully, thank you for watching if this actually interested you. The project itself is actually pretty easy to do, and hopefully you picked that up from this video that a complete beginner can figure this out and make it look pretty decent. Or at least, I hope it looks decent. Thanks for watching.